Welcome back to the Premier League years here on Football Manager 2022. We are entering season number 14 of the simulation, which is going to be the 2035-36 season. Taking a quick look back at how last season panned out, Chelsea are your new champions, a fourth time, I believe, in the simulation, but they have won the Premier League title. It was only 2 points over Manchester City, as they both asserted their dominance back on the top flight. Arsenal actually ended up getting a reasonably convincing third, with Liverpool there in fourth, getting a Champions League spot. You'll notice Spurs getting a Champions League spot as well, despite finishing down in seventh. They were your Europa League winners last year, so that's how they got into that route. Manchester United and Newcastle picking up fifth and sixth for the other European spots. We see the Tycoon-led Leeds United starting to push at Europe, still 7 points behind Tottenham, so a little bit of work to do for them. And Sheffield United had a pretty abysmal start to the season, but still managed to rise up to ninth, with Reading getting a top half finish in 10th. So we'll see if they can keep going with that one. It was pretty convincing as well, alongside West Ham. They are kind of making their own little mid-table league there. But we said goodbye to Fulham for the first time in a little while, and then Crystal Palace and Bournemouth were straight back down. Burnley managed to survive on goal difference, and then once again there was a bit of a gap. Brighton, reasonably safe. Norwich Villa, again, pretty safe. But we're now going to take a look at the upcoming 2035-36 season and take a look at the three sides that have been promoted back to the Premier League. Starting off with Blackburn Rovers. They make their return after quite a few seasons away, actually. 4 seasons away. They end up finishing third in the Championship for a second year in a row. But this time, they actually do come through the playoffs. No semi-final heartbreak this time, as I actually picked the right year. We see they actually had a 5-2 win in the playoff semi-finals against Swansea, which is a side that we haven't seen yet in this simulation. So that's the best they've done for a good while. And then a 3-0 win over Millwall in the playoff final. We saw Millwall in the very first season, the 2022-23 season. We've not seen them since. I think they've had a couple of playoff final defeats, but this is as close as we've seen them to returning. But it is Blackburn who return under Roberto Martinez, who has been here for a little while now, since his stint at West Ham ended. It's interesting to see that he has actually stuck around there, despite Blackburn being kind of stuck in the Championship for a while. The second team to look at is Brentford, with ex-Blackburn manager Benny McCarthy leading the way for them. He's been there for a couple of seasons since a stint with Bristol City. Brentford were away for just 2 seasons, and they return as the champions of the Championship, though predicted 20th to finish below both Blackburn and the other returning side, which is Wolves, who spent just 1 year in the Championship. A second place finish for them, so no Championship title, but Eddie Howe brings Wolves straight back to the top flight. We'll have a quick look at any manager movements. That is from last season. We knew Nagelsmann was the Newcastle boss last season. So outside of that, let's jump into any early transfers that have gone down in 2035 here. And we start off with Leeds. Now this is less surprising. As I mentioned, Leeds do have tycoon ownership. We've seen them make a lot of money, funnily enough. There's been a lot of sales since that takeover happened. The odd signing or two higher up. But so far, £48 million spent on Enrico Brancadori. He is an Italian centre-back coming in from Lazio. Over 100 Serie A appearances for Lazio. Physically, darn insane. In fact, he is a very, very good centre-back. Not very aggressive for being an Italian centre-back, which is very interesting. Positioning, marking, very good. Heading in there as well. That jumping reach certainly helps. Is fickle, which is less than ideal, but has 18 international caps, so Leeds starting to go for some big international players here. Seems that Italy won the Nations League as well. So he's coming off the back of a trophy at international level. So Enrico Brancadori looks like the first of what could be a few big signings for Leeds over the next few transfer windows. As we see Newcastle with an over £40 million move as well. They bring in Spurs' Nelio, another defender. So defenders are the order of the day so far. Nelio has over 100 Premier League appearances for Tottenham since his 2029 arrival from Flamengo. So, I mean, for Spurs, started off as bit part, started to become more of a regular, had one good season in 2031-32. He's been consistent, which is all you can kind of say, but at 29, makes a pretty big move to Newcastle. So I think Spurs can be pretty happy with that transfer. But obviously, if he pans out for Newcastle, I think both sides will be pretty happy with that one. If we go a little bit further down, we find Wolves on their Premier League return, spending potentially over £30 million. Again on a defender. It's Adam Dunn, 28 years old, from Manchester United. Was a squad player at best, only appeared 4 times last season and 8 the season prior to that. Man United do make a little bit of a profit on him, actually. They brought him in from Aston Villa. After Villa picked him up for less than £1 million, that was a very smart transfer there. But he comes into Wolves to try and keep them up this season. Go a little bit further down. I don't know how much will have gone down early in this summer window here. It appears that it's not too much. We've kind of got those 3. We have got Spurs using some of the money they got for their Brazilian defender to bring in Rui Neves from Espanyol, just listed as a squad player, 27-year-old Portuguese midfielder. The 19 passing certainly stands out. He's nothing spectacular except for that passing. So he's going to create a lot, though don't know how much he's going to play. Apparently he thinks Spurs have a good chance in the Champions League. That's going to be an interesting little side story to follow, how Spurs do get on playing at that level. João Resende has left Wolves. Now that is quite an interesting one because he has been long-term Wolves' best forward, 132 league goals for Wolves over a span of 8 years. But now, at 32 years of age, heads to Aston Villa. And Villa have struggled these past 2 or 3 seasons, so they certainly do need somebody to turn this team around. Maybe it's João Resende. We'll find out, but they are starting to make some moves early in this window. As we get a bit further down, it doesn't seem like there is a whole lot else to look at. We are still over 10 million currently. We do find Luke Grech. Or Grech? He's Maltese. That's it. Okay. There haven't been very many Maltese players in the Premier League. But Leicester signed Luke Grech from Cagliari. He did have a one-off season in the Premier League with Burnley back in 2031-32. He didn't do very well. I mean, 6.7 is just bang average, really. He did get a goal, so he's broken that duck at least. Luke Grech, very interesting player right there. Welcome Malta. And we also find Blackburn's biggest move early in the window actually involves Leicester as well, because they bring in Chris Bennett, an English 28-year-old centre-back. Very good tackling. Decent physicals, 6'5" and a 17 jumping reach is always useful. Went to Leicester from Derby after one season with Derby in the Premier League. And that was after signing from Rotherham. So he's had an interesting career, really. Got released by Arsenal, picked up by Oxford in League 2, and has worked his way back to Premier League clubs. Only played 3 times for Leicester in the Prem last season. But just over £10 million move to Blackburn for him. Can we find 1 or 2 more in the high single-digit transfer fees? Maybe not. Oh, there we go. Callum Roberts heads to Norwich from Barcelona, a Welsh left-back. heading from Barca to Norwich, formerly of Crystal Palace, through the Manchester United Academy, had a strange loan spell out in Mexico before signing for Celtic, 1 year with Blackburn in the Prem, then a couple with Palace in the Championship, and then just a weird move to Barcelona, where he had one good season a couple of years ago, now joins a Norwich side that is looking to get back into the top half of the Premier League this season. Can we get one more? Can we sneak one more transfer in? Maybe not. I keep finding January. It's a lot of January. Okay, we're going to move to the season preview then. And the favourites are the defending champions in Chelsea. Man City once again predicted in second, but Leeds have made the jump up and are now predicted to finish third. Obviously, they don't have European football either, so their squad doesn't have to be as in-depth as the likes of Chelsea, Man City, but more importantly, Arsenal, Liverpool, Newcastle, Man United and Spurs. So Leeds, this is probably going to be their best chance if they want to get a top four finish before they start having to cope with Europe as well. We've got Sheffield United and Leicester kind of just in their own little world here. And then there's everybody else from Southampton down to Burnley. And then quite incredibly, Blackburn, Wolves and Brentford all rated at 1,000 to 1. So it is very much the prediction that the three promoted sides are going to quite comfortably go straight back down. I hope that doesn't happen, and I hope that it isn't by the amount of points that the odds seem to indicate, but we'll see how we progress. Taking a quick look at the Media Dream 11 as well, we've got Osvaldo Fernando keeping his spot in goal, Vjekovic and Pushtai keeping their spots at fullback as well. Alejandro Rodriguez breaks in, the 29-year-old Mexican centre-back at Manchester United. I mean, he is absolutely incredible. Over 230 Premier League games across 9 years. We've still got Matsumoto in there as well. Still being listed as a centre-back, but it's just kind of more of a way to get him in the team, I think. He's more of a defensive midfielder. Manek has actually been moved up to midfield, which is quite interesting. He was listed at centre-back in the Dream 11 for a couple of years. Now been pushed into the midfield. Dino and Mbappe keep their roles in the squad. Fortunato breaks in, the Italian midfielder at Manchester City. And there was a rumour at the beginning of last season that he would be heading to Newcastle. And that interest is still there a year on. So there could be a move to Newcastle on the cards for Fortunato, but it would be a massive move. And then Haaland and Peña keep their spots up front. This is, again, contract years for Mbappe and Haaland. So will they get an extra year on top of what they've already got? Haaland is going to turn 35 this summer. Mbappe is going to turn 37 in December. It would be interesting to see if either of them decide to retire or if they want to have one more shot somewhere else before their careers end. But past that, that is our June summary roundup. We're going to get ahead to September next and close out the summer transfer window, take a look at what transfers go down, and then we'll also get to look at the UEFA Super Cup, the Community Shield as well. No major international competitions, in this year with it being 2035. But we did notice that Italy won the Nations League, so they take that one. But we will join back in September. Picking the save up at the start of September, and we're going to start with a quick roundup of some cup finals. The UEFA Super Cup saw Europa League winners Tottenham take on Champions League winners Manchester City, and it was a barnstormer of a game. In the end, Man City with a 4-2 win. Erling Haaland from the penalty spot. I feel like I've said that a lot in cup finals. Haaland gets a lot of penalties. Yeremy Pino made it 2-0, and then Sesko by the 28th minute made it 3-0 to Manchester City. Fran Puigmal got a very quick goal back to keep Spurs in the game, but Sesko closed it out in the 50th minute, making it 4-1. And then Liam Delap with a consolation goal against his former team. But the first piece of silverware heading to Manchester with Man City. And it's already 2 pieces of silverware for Manchester City because they also won the Community Shield. Man City in this game as the FA Cup winners from last season, Chelsea winning the Premier League. It was actually Chelsea that took the lead and were 1-0 up at half-time with a goal from Kylian Mbappe, who appears to have been moved out to left midfield for this season, which is going to be interesting. Sesko then levelled with a penalty, so slightly different than Haaland. Jeremy Pino then giving Man City the lead before Aindino made it 2-2. Those goals were all within 5 minutes of each other, but then the man, the myth, the legend, he did it again off the bench. Ben Bamba with the winning goal for Manchester City. Once again, though, with Ben Bamba, it's just a man that has never really broken out as a Man City starter just because of who he's behind in the likes of Haaland and Sesko. But he's been so important to the club. I think I mentioned this it was either the previous video or the video before. I mean, he actually got double-digit goals for the first time in his Premier League career last season. So he's starting to do something. He's trying. I mean, the lad's 27 at this point. If Haaland goes, you've got a ready-made replacement in Bamba. Just give him a chance. But that is a second piece of silverware before the Premier League season even starts for Manchester City. Next step is to check out the European club competitions, starting with the Europa League, because for a 3rd straight season, there is no Premier League representation in the Europa Conference League. So that's having its own little thing. But 2 English sides in the Europa League. We have Newcastle in a group with Real Sociedad, Young Boys and Atromitos. That is Group D. It's going to come down to Newcastle and Real Sociedad. I think with how well Newcastle did in the Champions League last year, I'm going to have to put them to top the group with Sociedad in 2nd. We'll have PSG Young Boys in 3rd and Atromitos for 4th. The other side is Manchester United. They're drawn into Group H alongside Sporting Lisbon, Club Brugge and Slavia Prague. It's a group that I think Manchester United should top relatively easily. I think the competition comes down to Club Brugge and Sporting for 2nd place. Just to be a little bit different, I'm going to go for Club Brugge to get that 2nd spot, with Sporting Lisbon in 3rd and Slavia Prague for 4th. And then Champions League-wise, it is 5 teams once again for a 2nd straight season. Liverpool are drawn into Group A. They're alongside Juventus, Celta Vigo and FC Midtjylland. Celta Vigo seem to have become a regular in the Champions League, which is quite interesting. They finished 4th. Okay, they did skip 1 season. So 2 of the last 3 seasons, Celta Vigo have been in the Champions League. I don't think they should get through this group. I think it is between Liverpool and Juventus. I'm going to give Liverpool that top spot and shape the group up as it looks right now. Group B is where Chelsea have been drawn. They'll take on RB Leipzig, Lazio and Fenerbahce. Again, I think Chelsea should probably top this group, and it probably will be in the order that it looks right now. Leipzig likely to get 2nd, with Lazio 3rd and Fenerbahce 4th. Tottenham in Group C as Europa League winners. They make the Champions League. They're drawn alongside PSG, Shakhtar Donetsk and APOEL Nicosia. Shakhtar Donetsk have been a funny side in Europe at times. Sometimes they've been topping groups with the likes of Liverpool and Barca in it, and then sometimes they've been finishing bottom of groups that didn't really have anyone in. So I have no idea what's going to happen with them. I'll say they'll get 3rd, and I'll bring it down to a battle between Spurs and PSG. I think this is a 3rd group in a row where how it looks now is probably how it ends. Spurs may well come 2nd rather than winning the group. We head down to Group E, where we find Manchester City. This is going to be another group that's going to look like it already looks, isn't it? Dortmund, Feyenoord and Red Star are the other 3 sides in the group. Man City and Dortmund to go through. Feyenoord for the Europa League spot, Red Star to finish last. And finally, we find Arsenal in Group H. They are alongside Bayern Munich, Athletic Bilbao, and Hellas Verona from Italy. That is an intriguing one. Managed by Gennaro Gattuso, 3rd place in Serie A last season for their first Champions League campaign. Wow. Okay, the thing is, I have these leagues loaded, and very, very strange things are happening. Much more so than in the Premier League, where it's the same kind of teams each time. With Italy, we're seeing the likes like Hellas Verona. Spain, we're seeing Bilbao and Celta Vigo. Some things are happening in some other countries. Like France, we've got Nîmes. Stuff is happening. But I think Bayern Munich should probably top that group. The battle most likely comes between Athletic Bilbao and Arsenal. I'll give Arsenal the benefit of the doubt here. All 5 groups, I'm saying, are going to end how they already look now. I'm being really imaginative here, aren't I? Side note, the Champions League final being played in Wales at the Millennium Stadium, which will make for an interesting one. We come back around for the Premier League, and we're going to take a look at the rest of the transfers that went down in the summer transfer window. And Manchester City top the pile in player sale and player transfer in. We'll firstly look at the player that they sold, which is Lubomir Toth. £54 million for the 24-year-old Slovak defender to head to AC Milan. Man City picked him up for £3.7 million back in 2030, so 5 years ago. Made a few appearances across 2032 out to 2034. Just the one Premier League appearance, though, last season. And they're able to get a massive profit on him to sell him to AC Milan, where he will become an immediate important player. Interesting turn of things there. But then, Man City go and spend £95 million on Real Sociedad goalkeeper Andre Pana. Now, this is the Ederson replacement, isn't it? They had Matvei Safonov for a couple of seasons, the ex-Spurs and Norwich goalkeeper in this save. They now turn to Andre Pana, and it is a huge fee at £95 million for a goalkeeper. But we've seen how important keepers can be in this save. Whenever a team has kind of lacked a starting goalkeeper, they have massively struggled. So Man City trying to take care of that right now with a guy that can be the keeper for the next 10 years. Interesting, he's Romanian, so another kind of... It's not an obscure nation in particular, but it's not one of the common ones you immediately think of for world-class players. So Andre Pana, welcome to the Premier League. We see Manchester United, the only other team to spend over 50 million in the back end of the window here. And they spend it on Rodinei, a man who spent 1 year at Newcastle. Newcastle bought him last season for 38.5 million. He got 25 appearances in the Prem, averaged over a 7 to be fair to him, but now arrives at Old Trafford for £52 million. Now 28 years of age, only just turned 28. I spoke about him last time. He is a good player. There's some interesting little bits missing, like he's not very composed, and vision you're not too worried about. His positioning is incredible. His actual defensive technicals are really good, and he's physically decent enough. The pace, possibly slightly worrying, but as I mentioned at the time, he's 6'4", so that tends to help in its own right. Interesting that Brentford then have the next biggest transfer, and it's them bringing in a player from Fulham. Now, Hiroyuki Kurata has had an interesting couple of seasons here, because he was at Everton. Everton got relegated, and Fulham signed him. And then Fulham got relegated last season, and now Brentford have signed him. Also, Kurata, exactly 100 caps for Japan, 66 goals. He's still only 28. He's having a very, very good career. He's quite a small striker for what you'd normally look for in FM22 anyway, because a lot of the 6-foot-plus forwards with decent physicals are the ones that tend to do the scoring. And Kurata, with 9 goals last season in Fulham's relegation season, he had 7 in Everton's relegation season. Slightly bad omen that he has been relegated twice. But we'll see what happens. Brentford putting a big outlay on him. They need double digits from him at least. We see Brian Velasquez a young Arsenal goalkeeper heading out to Real Sociedad. So they replace Andre Pana with Brian Velasquez. Smart move, Real Sociedad. You also saved yourselves £50 million in doing that. It's not too bad. But Arsenal then used that money to bring in Francisco Amaral, a Portuguese right-back from Barcelona, who actually had only very recently left Liverpool to join Barcelona. Liverpool, he was rotation. He played quite a few times, but not enough to prove he was the starting fullback. He started like half the games in 2020-31. Came through at Moreirense actually, and then Moreirense? Not sure how to say that. Went to Sporting Lisbon, and then just the 2 seasons at Barcelona with just 11 appearances, 37 million to make him a squad player at Arsenal, because they still have Bjekovic, who is like the best right back in the Prem. Interesting amount to spend on a blatant backup. You see, Newcastle's biggest move is Dom Flood, another man who's made 2 quick transfers. Was sold by Everton after their relegation, did play partially in their championship campaign, was signed in 2033 by Manchester United for 44 million, did not play well at all, and they lose money on him to sell him to Newcastle, where he's played 2 times and he's currently listed in the under-23s. Again, some transfers make absolutely no sense. Is this Spurs' biggest move? I think it might be. They made 1 transfer, didn't they, in the early part of the summer. I believe this is their biggest transfer. Antonio Sablone, a Dutch centre-back coming in. Not a very Dutch-sounding name. No, it's part Italian. Okay, that makes slightly more sense. Tackling very good. Heading again good. 6'3" is a nice height. Physicals are off the charts nearly. Listed as a squad player, but he could quite easily slot straight into that starting team. Though he's made 2 appearances and been absolutely horrendous, which is strange. Actually, a long-time Burnley centre-back from 2028 to 2032 before his move to Bayern Munich. So he does have Premier League experience. Horrendous start, though. So that improves. Villa are at it again. Fulham's relegation brings about the transfer of Craig Cooper, who had over 50 goals for Fulham, including 12 in the Premier League in the 33-34 campaign. And he's already netted twice in 3 games since his move to Aston Villa. I did mention previously Villa needed to get on it and start doing something because they were getting dangerously close to the relegation zone. They do, and it's by bringing in Craig Cooper. And then, who did they bring in this window? There was somebody here as well that I mentioned earlier. It's further down. I'm wary that this is already a long segment, so I don't want it to go on too long. We see Sheffield United and Reading actually bringing in money. Sheffield United selling Enoch Agyi to Celta Vigo. So Vigo kind of taking the Sheffield United approach of signing players in their early 30s. This is a big one, though, for Reading. Emirkan Gürlük is gone, and he's gone to Shakhtar, which is an interesting move. Over 100 appearances for Reading, I believe all in the Premier League as well, and was their primary chance creator. They do get over £30 million for him, though, which is certainly not bad, and they reinvest that into a striker in Joe Thompson. Now this is the kind of typical FM22 forward you normally see. He's not the quickest, though 15 pace is still very good, but powerful, good balance, ridiculous heading. This is the kind of guy. Scottish forward as well, 6 in 14 for Scotland. Comes in after a few different loan spells out from Liverpool, including his most recent one at Burnley a couple seasons ago, where he got 16 goals in the Championship. So Joe Thompson should be a very interesting player. Reading actually got a load of money for Jack Joyce as well, which was a striker, so that was that replacement there. Joyce comes in as a squad player at Norwich, hasn't scored yet for them. How's he been doing for Reading? He's been doing okay. It's a bit of an odd transfer, that one. I think Reading have probably won that deal in selling Joyce for 27.5 and buying Thompson for 28.5. I think Reading have come out better from that. We see a few more Newcastle and Manchester United transfers. Yunus Musa is back, 32 years of age, heading to Newcastle. I believe he was, long-time Manchester United midfielder, over 200 Premier League appearances for Manchester United. And then we have Manchester United making two signings in Gideon Ejiofor, a 21-year-old German defender who is 5'10", but I'm going to look past that. I'm getting too caught up on height at the moment. His heading is also only 9, but he's got an okay jumping reach. He's very good on the ball. I would much prefer him in that CDM position. He is currently injured, so hasn't made his Manchester United debut yet. Gladbach only bought him the prior season, and he played pretty well. So we'll see how Ejiofor gets on. They also spend 29 million on Taylor Kendrew, who was the Crystal Palace goalkeeper in their relegation season, went from Blackburn to Palace, and now comes in at Manchester United as their number 1 at 29 years of age. So that is very interesting for United. So keep an eye, Taylor Kendrew, now the name to look for as Man United's primary shot stopper. Spurs also bringing in Devin Wrench, 32 years of age he is now. Sheffield United's biggest move of the summer is Jake Roger, the Scottish right-back from Brighton, was actually out on loan for the past couple seasons. Came in from Ross County. Hey, there you go, a Ross County product. So big shout out to them. Brighton spending just under 4 million on him. And he never actually played for Brighton. Went back out on loan to Ross County. And then a loan spell in Israel with Maccabi Tel Aviv, where he played reasonably well. Hasn't had the greatest of starts with Sheffield United. We'll see how that develops. Reading also spending some of their earned money on Herman Gonzalez, the Uruguayan right-back from Leicester City. Leicester brought him in only 2 seasons ago. Barely played him, where he played okay. And now Reading give Leicester a tiny bit of profit and get themselves a squad player. I was going to say a starting right-back. Physically, he's very impressive. And he's okay in the other areas. He's reasonable. Got Sheffield United bringing in a new first-choice shot stopper, and it's Joe Bursick this time. Sheffield United and goalkeepers, just working right through them. They also bring in Robert Witham, 26-year-old English left-back from Bournemouth. We've got Brighton's biggest move of the window being Timothy Davignon, a Belgian left-back, 25 years of age, physically extremely impressive. That seems to be the new thing. Just get physically impressive players. Brighton also making money by selling Julio Viquez to Vitesse Arnhem, their Costa Rican central midfielder. Got Man United again at it, heading to Brazil for a transfer for a backup goalkeeper. So they actually bring in 2 keepers in this window. Marcio Ricardo is brought in. Got Blackburn's biggest move is Victor Vinicius, a Brazilian left-back coming in from Feyenoord. A lot of left-backs in this transfer window. Liverpool turning to Leeds for Luca Tenconi, a right-back to be a backup. Seeing what other teams we can spot. Burnley heading to Gil Vicente to bring in, Esteban Ruiz de Galarreta, 28-year-old Argentine centre-back, comes in to be squad depth for Burnley. Wolves also heading to the same team to bring in Ivan Bejiga, a Portuguese left winger who will take over as a starter. Is missing a lot of technical areas. He's very quick and he's very good on the ball. What he actually does with the ball, I don't know. He feels a bit Adama Traore-esque. We'll see how he gets on. Could be proven wrong. I've been proven wrong multiple times in this save. That's an interesting transfer, though. Anatoly Trubin leaves Chelsea and is now Tottenham's number one. So what's going on at Chelsea with goalkeeper then? Who's gone in goal for them? At the moment, it appears it's Carlos Grisales, which it is not the highest rated goalkeeper you've ever seen. Only played 2 games last season after a under £4 million move from Stuttgart. He started pretty well though this season for Chelsea, so you can't complain too much. They've got Jochen Mutzel as well, a name we've seen a few times in regards to Liverpool. He came in actually a few years ago for under 300,000. Hasn't appeared since 2032 though. So that's kind of interesting. So, yeah, a bit of a keeper situation there at Chelsea with Trubin gone. Outside of that, there's a lot of other transfers going on towards Championship and towards teams in Europe. I mean, Sasa Stolicevich, a Serbian left-back heading to Sheffield United. These will be more squad depth transfers, though, by this point. So let's take a look at how the Premier League table stands 3 games into the season. Unsurprisingly, it's Chelsea and Manchester City leading the way. They are a perfect 3 from 3. Chelsea with wins over Wolves, Leeds and Brentford. The win over Wolves, 6-1 at Molineux. However, that is Wolves' only loss of the season because they won their other 2 matches. A win over Reading and a win over Southampton. So a surprisingly good start for Wolves. Blackburn have got a win under their belts as well. They beat West Ham. And then Brentford, 3 straight defeats for Brentford, including a 5-0 loss at Anfield. So pretty rough start for them. Sheffield United up in 3rd. They're the only team on 7 points. Their drop points were a 2-2 draw at Brighton. But Brighton up in 9th, so not too much to be concerned with there, I guess. Leicester and Villa with much better starts than last season. They're up in 6th and 7th respectively. And Manchester United, once again, just getting off to a terrible start. Although I say that, you're only 2 points off 4th. It's only 3 games in. We see the loss was away at Arsenal, and the draw was away at Southampton. Have won their only home game of the season. The only other team with no points so far is actually Reading. Well, they have played Arsenal and Liverpool in that. The only concerning one is the 2-0 defeat away at Wolves. Also losing 4-0 at home to Arsenal. Definitely not ideal. But to round this section out, this is always the long part, but we are going to get into the flow of the season after this. Iandino with 6 goals in the first 3 games. How many of those came against Wolves? Probably quite a few. David Pena up there again. He's got 5, and Benjamin Sesko on 4. Rafael Luis leads the league in assists. How old is he at this point? He is 30. And then Josh Griffiths and Julien Baptiste, the new Leicester City goalkeeper, lead the way in clean sheets. Not 2 names I really expected. Who is Josh Griffiths, by the way? Oh, I know who he is. He's the West Brom keeper. Yeah, the young West Brom lad. Okay. So he's ended up at Wolves for just over 5 million from Bournemouth, got promoted with them, and has stayed as the first choice keeper. I love that they kept clean sheets in their 2 wins and then conceded 6 to Chelsea. That is incredibly impressive. But we're going to move on now to the beginning of November. There's not too much to pick up there. We're just seeing the season roughly 10 games in, and then if there's any managerial changes. And we'll also get into the player and team stats at that point. So we picked the save up on the 1st of November, and actually just a little bit of a side note that I only noticed because of a news story section when I loaded up this save point. The Manchester City Stadium is no longer the Etihad. It is now the Colin Bell Arena, which they just moved into this season with a capacity of over 73,500. Colin Bell, of course, a legendary Manchester City player, so lovely that they have named it after one of their old legends as well, not one of the Premier League era guys. The Colin Bell Arena in Manchester. But with that, we do return to the Premier League, and actually we're only 9 games in rather than 10, with it being the 1st of November. Could have gone a few days further, and would have got to 10 potentially. In fact, yeah, you can see there, Saturday 3rd of November was the next set of fixtures. Well, we're at 9, so we're 6 further on anyway. And it's Manchester City who lead the way. Just the 2 draws in there. They were at home against Liverpool and away at West Ham. Man City 3 clear of Chelsea, who are 1 clear of Newcastle, and Aston Villa currently fill 4th place, which is surprising. But I did say they had to do something, because they were getting scarily close to relegation. They go out, they make a couple big signings, and they're back competing for Europe again. So, well done, Villa. I can't even remember who you're managed by at this point. Yes, it's Axel Witsel, who came in partway through last season. So Axel Witsel, apparently me and him along the same wavelength, because he's been doing some very smart business there at Villa. We see Liverpool, Arsenal and Leeds rounding out the top 7. Man United outside looking in right now, and Spurs, the side that are struggling, though it's still all very, very close. Man City have kind of gone, Chelsea and Newcastle have got their own little bit, but then Villa down to Sheffield United in 14th is only 5 points. Again, granted, we are only about a quarter of the way through the season, but it is all very close. Looking to the bottom of the table, Southampton with just 5 points, only 1 win, which was actually at Ellen Road, which is a very surprising win, and their draws are with Arsenal and Man United. What is going on at Southampton? But then you've lost to Wolves, Norwich and Reading. I think Southampton have got a reasonable set of fixtures coming up here, so they can certainly recover. West Ham down in 19th. Their 1 win was over Reading, who fill the other relegation spot right now on 7 points. So quite interesting that the 3 newly promoted sides that were supposed to be far worse than any other team are actually 17th, 16th and 13th right now, and Wolves look relatively safe at the moment. Still a long way to go though, as mentioned. Manager-wise, I've had a quick look. Nothing has changed. So let's get into the team and player statistics. Starting with the team side of things, we have goals. Chelsea lead the way with 23, Manchester City 20 in their first 9. Looking at the other end of the scale, Southampton with just 7 goals on the season, so that is certainly their issue right now. Brentford at 8, and then Wolves, Reading and Leicester with just 9. So Leicester only getting about a goal a game, but they are up in 10th. So defensively they must be incredible. We'll have a look. Yeah, they've only conceded 10. So they've just been it's been a lot of 1-1s, I'd imagine, in that respect. But Man City with the least conceded at 6, and Newcastle just 7. Chelsea have conceded 10, which sees them not topping the table. They're in 2nd. Arsenal and Leicester there at 10 conceded as well. If we look to the other end of things, Sheffield United have actually conceded the highest number of goals. So they went and got Joe Bursick from Leicester for this season. Maybe hasn't panned out so well. I mean, I can't blame it fully on him. The defence might be doing terrible as well. But they've conceded 18. Brentford, Reading and West Ham at 17 and Blackburn on 16. Getting into the player detailed stats, starting with goals, we've actually got a tie at the moment on 7 between David Peña and Aindino. It was starting to be a thing where when would the new gen players finally start overtaking the likes of Mbappe and Haaland? Currently Peña and Aindino doing it by 1 goal over both Mbappe and Haaland, and then chuck Harvey Elliott in there with 6 goals, which is very impressive. And then on 5, we've got Daniel Jebbison, Emir Saglam's there again, the German forward for Manchester United. We also see Daniel Weisinger, who was signed, he was the Spezia player, wasn't he? I do remember him being signed. But his 5 have not really helped out, because West Ham are in the bottom 3. So I don't know what everyone else is doing, but he's certainly trying. If we look to assists, We see Massimo Fortunato leading the way with 6. Then Jesus, Guillaume Santos, and Martin are there with 4 each. Jesus, not a player I'm very familiar with. I think I might have mentioned him before, actually. He came through the Arsenal Academy, despite being Spanish. Really started to play in 2032-33, and has been getting into the 7 ratings since 2033. So he's into his 3rd season of really consistently good play. Now has 4 assists, got 8 last season. See Yunus Musa here in his first year with Newcastle. Quite a few other names there on 3, Shola Shortai, Kylian Mbappe in there. Mohamed Amora, who we're more used to seeing score goals than assist them. If we jump to key passes, we see Cole Palmer leading the way for Norwich. They're up in the top half at the moment. Pedro Cerezo there for Wolves. I almost said for Spain. He is Spanish. He's in there for key passes as well, which is quite interesting. I mean, passing vision 15 each, you can see why. Camavinga is in 3rd. Go down a little bit more to chances created. We actually have a 3-way tie between Brighton's Guillaume Santos, Arsenal's Mark, which is still one of my favourite players just for his name, and then again Massimo Fortunato in there. He's at 7 chances created and 6 assists. A little unfortunate for Mark, 7 chances created, absolutely no assists whatsoever. And then Rafael Luis on the same team, 5 chances created, 3 assists. Okay, very interesting. Liam Delap, most fouled player and most offsides, which is an interesting combination of things. If we get to the defensive side of things, we start with tackles 1. Daniel Cusero, a player we've seen a lot of in the past few seasons, up there for Norwich, alongside Maronis Klakidis, and Calgary is back, a man that I once claimed was a terrible signing by Fulham. I got that horribly wrong, because Fulham actually did quite well that season. Yeah. There we go. With Calgary now 33 years of age, this is when I start knowing that we are getting quite a long way into this save. When he was signed for Fulham, that was 11 years ago. He was a young, upstart Brazilian fullback. This is a good name. Not a name we've seen yet either. Canadian left-back Lee Lake, playing for Southampton. Only signed this season for $2.6 million from Cagliari. Played very briefly for Blackburn in the Championship 3 seasons ago. So he has played in England before, but this is his first experience in Premier League football. He's winning a lot of tackles, so good for him. Getting to the key tackles, we've got a 4-way tie between Martin Fuentes, Adam Dunn, Raheem Vaughan, and Fernando Jose of Leeds. Let's take a quick look at some of these guys. Jose, just a squad player. Vaughan, regular starter at right back, I would assume, listed as a fullback. Adam Dunn is a player that we mentioned. That was Wolves' big transfer of the summer. So he's making some key plays in that defence. And then Martin Fuentes, the Peruvian fullback / central midfielder, who has just joined West Ham from Stade Rennes, actually. Nope, this is his first time playing in England. Did have a brief stint in Scotland before a player exchange out to Stade Rennes. Now arrives on English shores, so interesting there. See Rainy Brainberg leading blocks. Brenberg, not exactly sure. Victor Vinicius, most fouls. Was he a new signing? I believe he was. He was Blackburn's big signing, wasn't he? He's caused the most fouls in the Premier League so far. It's quite interesting. And then finally, to round it out, we'll look at the goalkeepers. Interesting, there haven't been a whole lot of clean sheets in the first 9 games. Osvaldo Fernando and Julien Baptiste lead the way with 4 each. Josh Griffiths and Andre Panna have 3. And then there's a few guys with 2, and then only sort of 1 or 2 people with 1 clean sheet. There's a lot of teams without a clean sheet in those first 9 games, which is certainly not ideal. The only other bit we'll check is the XG prevented, and we actually see the 2 guys leading the clean sheet race, topping this as well. That would give the idea that the league has turned to more of an attacking one at the moment, rather than defensive. So it's more about how many can you score than keeping them out the other end. So Fernando and Baptiste up there at the top. We do see Elias Raffen Olofsson, the Southampton goalkeeper, in his second season as the regular keeper with the Saints. Came in from Benfica at the start of last season. He's having a good start to this year. And Andre Panna, his first year in English football, having a pretty good start to it as well. Look at Blackburn's goalkeeper, James Williams. In his second season, his first regular Premier League season, did play a couple of times for Southampton in 2029-30, but it's been a lot of Championship and League One football since then. Got his move to Blackburn last year, became their starter, and got promoted. And he's having an alright start to his Premier League career, to be fair. So that is good to see. Grisales not having the best of times, but not terrible either. As Chelsea's new number one. Trubin not having a great time as Spurs number one. And Spurs not particularly enjoying it either, down in 11th. But the next pickup point is going to be the start of January, so where we hit 2036. We're going to take a look at how the European group stages pan out. We'll have a look at who wins the Ballon d'Or, and then see what the Premier League table looks like roughly halfway through the season. We pick up the save on the 1st of January at the awarding of the Ballon d'Or, and Kylian Mbappe just keeps defying Father Time. He's just turned 37. He's just won his 8th Ballon d'Or of his career. He just doesn't care. He hasn't got a new contract at Chelsea yet, though, and he is now wanted by Inter and Barcelona. This could be it. He looks like he's going to fall short of 500 Premier League games. He's also 2 away from matching Alan Shearer's goal record in the Premier League, which I think would only put Mbappe like 3rd, which is completely insane at this point. We're also interested by Erling Haaland. Again, somebody who hasn't had his contract extended yet. He has gone past 260. He's at 294. And he's wanted by Nîmes and Inter Milan. Imagine Erling Haaland at Nîmes. That sounds completely insane at the start of a normal save. It could happen here. He's also 1 goal shy of 100 for Norway. Yeah, they've both had pretty insane careers. But it's Mbappe who gets an 8th Ballon d'Or. Sesko still hasn't won one, the poor guy. He comes 2nd. He's been the Aguero of this generation. Poor Sesko. Give him a Ballon d'Or at some point, lads. Come on. We then head over to the European club competitions, starting with the Europa League. And I said that Newcastle's competition was going to be Real Sociedad. It did prove to be that way, but Newcastle managed to top the group 15 points, 2 ahead of Real Sociedad. That despite actually losing 3-2 away at Sociedad. They did manage to avenge that, though, with a 4-2 win at home. So both of those games were pretty darn entertaining. Them and Sociedad head through. Newcastle skip straight to the last 16 stage. We scroll down to Manchester United in Group H. They go 1 point better as they get 16 in the end. Their only drop points, a 1-1 draw in Lisbon against Sporting. Sporting head through with them. I think I said Club Bruges just to make it a little bit different, but Bruges end up 3rd. So United will also skip straight through to the last 16 stage. And then in terms of the Champions League, starting with Group A, and Celta Vigo top the group and don't lose a game. They drew 2-2 at home against Liverpool and 1-1 away at Juventus. Celta Vigo went to Anfield and won 3-0. What is this Celta Vigo side, managed by Veljko Paunovic? I mean, that is something. Celta Vigo top the group. Liverpool do get through, though. They finish 3 points ahead of Juventus, which means a very dangerous Juventus side enters the Europa League. Liverpool's only loss was that 3-0 defeat to Celta Vigo at Anfield. They had 3 wins, the 2 over Midtjylland, which were expected, and a home win over Juve, as well as a draw in Juventus, 2-2. Looking at Group B, Chelsea go the perfect 6-6 as they finish top of that group. No giant wins, a few 3-0s, a couple over Fenerbahce, and actually a big 3-0 win away at Leipzig. is a very impressive one. Leipzig head through with them, but a whole 10 points behind. We look to Group C. We find Tottenham do get through. They finish 2 points behind PSG, though. So PSG top the group. PSG's only loss was actually at Shakhtar. Spurs' only loss was at PSG. Just a couple of draws in there as well. Both at home against PSG and Shakhtar, actually. The Spurs will head through. They will have to play a group topper, though. We look at Group E. Manchester City don't finish top. That is interesting. They finished level on points with Dortmund on 11. Dortmund got a 2-1 win at the Colin Bell Stadium. Got to remember that now. And the other game in Dortmund was a draw. So yeah, Borussia Dortmund finish ahead of Manchester City on head-to-head record. They both finished 3 points clear of Feyenoord, though. So they both head through. But that's now 3 English sides who have to play a group winner. So this may well not be the easiest path. And if we go down to Group H, it's 4 of the 5 don't win their group. Bayern Munich go a perfect 6 for 6. They're back with a vengeance after giving up the Champions League crown last season way too easily. They have 1-0 and 2-1 wins over Arsenal. And Arsenal only get through on, I assume, head-to-head record. They lost 2-0 in Bilbao, but they won 2-0 at home. So I think it may have then come down to goal difference. Arsenal's was +2, Bilbao's was -1. That was a little bit too close for comfort for Arsenal, but they do sneak through, which poses the question, how strange is this last 16 looking? Well, Manchester City have got to play Bayern Munich. That's the previous 2 champions taking each other on. That's a heck of a last 16 tie. We see Chelsea, the only side that actually won their group, is drawn against Porto. So that should be a relatively nice draw for Chelsea compared to what they could have got. I mean, obviously they couldn't play 4 of the sides because they're English. So they had a rather limited pot to actually face. We see Liverpool drawn against Borussia Mönchengladbach, Arsenal drawn against Nîmes, and Tottenham will play Barcelona. The Gladbach and Nîmes sound like very nice draws. Those 2 sides are very, very good now. So they are certainly not going to be walkovers. Spurs probably get the worst one, though, in Barcelona. There's still 5 sides in the Champions League. There's a chance to do what they did last year and get 5 teams into the quarterfinals. And then bringing the focus back around to the Champions League, and there's been a few managerial changes going around. Reading were the first to make a managerial change. They sacked Mark van Bommel in mid-November after they were in the relegation zone around that point. And they actually turned to Wolves, who were doing relatively well, and they bring in Eddie Howe. So Eddie Howe now in charge at Reading, which makes for a very interesting sounding appointment there. He's disappointed at how things are going, obviously, because he joined Reading in a pretty bad situation. Brief stint at Wolves, to say the least. He's had 2 stints there. Neither were very long. We'll see how long this one lasts at Reading. Just a day later, Manchester United sacked Simone Inzaghi, a manager who had been there for just a couple of years after leaving the Italy national team. And Manchester United lures Pep Guardiola back to the Premier League for yet another go. He's managed Man City, Liverpool, Arsenal, and now add Manchester United to that list. This is certainly the most controversial move. Obviously, did amazing things at Manchester City, is still doing amazing things, though I am recording this the day after they just lost to Real Madrid by conceding 2 goals in the 90th minute and blowing a place in the Champions League final. But Guardiola was actually Sociedad manager, but now jumps to Manchester United. Very intriguing one. Did leave Wolves, mentioning the Eddie Howe move. Wolves then had to go and get a new manager. They turned to Dejan Stankovic. Now, he was actually most recently at Empoli, but he was only hired in 2035. There was a big gap between him leaving Villarreal and then him being hired by Empoli. In fact, there's been... Oh no, he was long-term Villarreal boss. Okay, that makes more sense. He was Villarreal for about 8 years, decided to take some time out after that, managed Empoli for a bit, and now comes to the Premier League for the first time. He's a very, very long-term Inter Milan player. So this is a very interesting one to come over. Then Burnley decided to sack Gini Wijnaldum. That was the beginning of December. And they turned to Southampton to hire John Terry. John Terry at Burnley. I don't know why I feel like this fits, but it's an interesting one. We'll see how Terry gets on. We'll see long stint as Reading manager. Much shorter stint with Southampton, which was actually a reasonably decent one. Now has Burnley to try and keep them up, which has left Southampton without a manager. They're currently under caretaker management with Lee Hoskins, who is doing it for a third time since he joined the club in 2029. But exactly halfway through the season, wow, that's actually worked out really well. How does the Premier League table look? Well, Manchester City are 5 points clear of Liverpool, and then they are one further clear of Chelsea. Bit of a gap back to Newcastle, and a little bit of a gap back to Arsenal, Leeds, and Manchester United. So the top 8 has kind of righted itself to the regular teams that I think we're going to see for a little while here. Leicester are the best of the rest, and only 1 point behind Spurs. It's not too bad on their part. They've recovered pretty well. Sheffield United up to 10th after another slow start to the season. Again, a bit of a recovery. Looking at the bottom half of the table, Reading are in huge trouble. They've picked up barely any points in the past 10 games. I think they've won 1 game and lost all of the rest. They won at Blackburn, but I think they've lost their other 9 games. It'd be 9. They've lost a lot. Blackburn are also in quite a lot of trouble. They're only on 14 points. And currently Burnley do fill the other relegation spot. So interesting from Terry to move from Southampton to Burnley. Though Southampton are only 3 clear of Burnley. So it was kind of, which team do you want to do the relegation battle with? And he decided that it would be better to do it with Burnley. If we look a little bit higher up, Aston Villa have dropped off a cliff. They're now in 15th and only 3 points clear of the relegation zone. So I don't know what's happened there. And it's all very tight, isn't it? Blackburn and Reading seem in a lot of trouble. But from Burnley up to like Brighton in 11th, it is very, very close. Taking just a very brief look at the player stats we can see on the side here. Top scorer is currently a tie between David Peña and Benjamin Sesko at 14. Fortunato still leads the way in assists. And Pascal Traore has actually kept 7 clean sheets in his last 10 games, which has helped Liverpool fly back up the table into 2nd place, being Man City's nearest challengers. Osvaldo Fernando on 7, just in behind. As Newcastle currently fill 4th place, trying to get back into the Champions League. And Andre Pana actually there in 3rd for Manchester City in his first season in the Premier League. But other than that, the next step is to get forward to the beginning of February, close out the January transfer window. We'll take a look at what transfers go down. We'll see who Southampton replaced John Terry with as manager, and we'll get another look at the Premier League table roughly 5 games further on. So we return on the 5th of February, just making sure that the January transfer window was fully closed, and Southampton's new manager is the Brentford manager, Benny McCarthy. Was doing actually pretty well with Brentford in their return season to the top flight. Comes in at Southampton to try and keep them up instead, which meant Brentford needed a new manager, and it's a returning manager to Brentford. Darren Ferguson is back after about 3.5 years away. His stint with Brentford, he got them promoted back to the Premier League. Brilliant. I'm not sure much of that was his doing. Had an absolutely horrendous start to the season and was sacked. some reason they have decided to give him another go. I don't understand this one. I don't think it's going to go very well. But Darren Ferguson, son of Sir Alex Ferguson, is back once again at Brentford. Blackburn also had to deal with a move. Roberto Martinez just left. He decided to go to Benfica, which, I mean, Benfica or Blackburn, yeah, I can understand that move. Which has meant that Blackburn have had to hire a new manager, which they did just 4 days ago. Gini Wijnaldum was not out of work for long. Sacked by Burnley, hired by Blackburn. That's a massive rivalry right there. And he has crossed the divide within the space of 2 months. So that's going to be popular. Although if you're getting sacked, to be fair, I think the club probably care a little bit less. But January transfer window time, let's have a look at what's gone on. So we're looking for 2036, and immediately Leeds are at it again. Over £50 million on Matis Soumare from Bayern Munich, a Belgian defender. So Leeds are really trying to strengthen at the back here. He was not at Bayern for very long. In fact, they spent £53 million on him from Wolfsburg, who got him for just under 30 from Club Brugge, where he came through their academy. So just 21 appearances in a year and a half at Bayern Munich, and now Leeds spend $1 million less than Bayern Munich did to bring him in. Had a pretty torrid debut, although it was off the bench, which is never ideal for a defender, and seemingly suffered a groin strain in that game. So that was a pretty sad debut. But he's got big shoes. Well, not big shoes to fill. He's got a lot to prove, rather. He's got to step straight in there and make a difference. The next biggest transfer was actually a player out. Spurs selling Noel Rojo for potentially £35 million to Hertha Berlin. He is a Spanish attacking midfielder who heads to Germany. James Tizard is an interesting move. A name we have seen 1 or 2 times in transfers. Was at Bournemouth, was playing reasonably well for them in the Championship. Now makes a £27.5 million move to Liverpool, where he has made a couple of appearances, 1 start, 1 off the bench, and has been not great so far. But again, it's a new club, it's a new environment. He has played 10 games for Spurs in the past, so he is used to being at reasonably big clubs. But joins the team that is physically second in the Premier League and is considered a regular starter. So we'll see how that goes for Mr. Tizard. Though, Liverpool making some money because Ansu Fati's on the move. And he is headed to Arsenal. Now that is very interesting. I wonder if his contract was coming up at Liverpool. And either he didn't want to re-sign, or they decided that him being 33, they wanted to move on. They managed to get £25 million for him, though. He's been at Liverpool since the start of this simulation, through the 13 and a half seasons he gets through as a Liverpool player. Now shifts on to Arsenal towards the back end of his career. That is going to be an intriguing one to see if he can push Arsenal on to become a competitor for Champions League football. See, Liverpool selling another player in Serkan Bekara. He heads off to Stardom, 29-year-old Turkish centre-back. I mean, he looks very, very good. And they only got potentially £23.5 million for him. So I'm not sure that was the greatest of transfers there. They do get an in, though, as well. Ayoub Masoudi, a 28-year-old Moroccan midfielder, comes in from Inter Milan, just under £17 million. Had been playing pretty well for Inter Milan this season, and a lot more regularly than he played the year before that. So we'll see how Ayoub Masoudi gets on, just seen as a squad player currently. We see Southampton, in their attempts to stay up this season, going to their neighbours Bournemouth to bring in South Coast neighbours. It's not exactly the Portsmouth rivalry, but it's still kind of a rivalry. I mean, Brighton's also there. But anyway, South Coast rivals. Karel Cermak comes into Southampton. A 26-year-old Czech midfielder has made his debut since joining. I mean, Bournemouth only paid 3.4 million for him from Leeds, who lost money on a guy that never played for them. They lost almost $1 million in the space of a year. That is impressively terrible business from Leeds there. This was them trying to get used to having money and it going horribly wrong. But Bournemouth do pretty well out of it. In the Championship this season, 5 goals in 18 games for him, just over a 7 average rating. And they spin him off for over £16 million. Not too bad there from Bournemouth as he heads to Southampton. Brighton's biggest transfer of January is Sebastian Larsson, a Danish centre-back coming in from Lazio. Didn't play too much for Lazio. In fact, his first season, he only appeared once. However, this season, he actually became a regular and kind of averaged the same. He was decent. He was reasonable. Brighton make I was going to say relatively big move for them, but there was that time, a few years back, when Brighton gained quite a bit of money and then didn't really do anything with it. But there we go. If we go a little bit further down, we see Brighton at it again, actually. They do bring in Aaron Edwards from Derby, a Welsh midfielder. There's a new gen that's 30. Oh, I'm so far into the save now, aren't I? He's a pretty good player. Currently suffering with a twisted ankle, but he'll be back within the next day or so. Mentally pretty good. His concentration's a little low. Again, not a very aggressive. No one seems to be very aggressive, which is a bit disappointing. We want people kicking each other. Come on. Very creative midfielder, more of an attacking style midfielder. Did notice, I thought I noticed somebody else, but I didn't. You see, Diogo Costa heading to Chelsea. 36-year-old goalkeeper. They decide that they need a new first choice. Diogo Costa is going to be the move. He is signed on for next season as well. He's not had a great start. Only a 6.5 average rating through 4 games. We'll see how that develops. It's certainly not a long-term solution, but it's something. Nico Williams leaves Man City. He heads to Celta Vigo. You see, Norwich's biggest move of the window is Henri Marchand, a Belgian centre-back coming in from Feyenoord, who were in the Champions League. He was not playing a whole lot, just the 6 league games in the first half of the season. Heads to Norwich, not the best of starts there. We'll see how he develops. And we'll get 1 or 2 more moves in. Alfie Dorrington has left Brighton for Hull. And Reading bringing in Ricardo Munoz. They know they need a miracle. They turn to Munoz, a Spanish striker coming in from Alaves. He had 11 goals already in the second tier of Spain this season, and he got 12 the season before this when they were relegated. So he certainly knows where the net is, which is such a stupid sentence, but I'm saying it anyway. He's going to have to very quickly pick up that goal-scoring form again here in a league he's never played in. That could be interesting. That was a £10 million move. See, we have got one more here. Milos Kerkez, the ex-Everton fullback, was at Chelsea briefly. He heads off to Benfica for £9.5 million. But let's take a look at the Premier League table here in February. We are about 6 or 7 games further on, actually, so slightly more than I thought. Man City are 6 points clear of Chelsea. Liverpool seem to have fallen off a cliff and have dropped to 4th. But Man City also have a game in hand over Chelsea. It could be a 9-point gap. It looks like Man City don't want to wait 2 years to get their crown back this time. Just the 1 season of not winning it will be more than enough for them. Newcastle have actually managed to punch themselves up into 3rd place with a better goal difference than Liverpool, and they are both 5 clear of Spurs, who have managed to leap their way into 5th place. So a very good run from them, whilst Leeds have dropped all the way down to 10th. So it's gone a bit wrong on that front. Did I check managers? I did, didn't I? Yes, the Gino Wijnaldum hiring. Sometimes I talk and I forget what I've spoken about. If we look at the bottom half of the table, Reading 15 points. They are 8 adrift of currently Blackburn at safety. Burnley and Brentford are within 3 and 2 points of safety respectively. And then you have Blackburn and Wolves. And then a little bit of a gap to Southampton. So good little start for Benny McCarthy trying to keep them safe. If we look for, the newly promoted sides, all 18, 17, 16. There's a good chance that a couple of them will stay up, which was certainly not predicted at the beginning of the year. If we look to the goal scorers and, we'll do assists and clean sheets as well, just quickly. Benjamin Sesko is pulling away at the top of the goal scoring chart. He's got 22, which is 4 ahead of Kylian Mbappe on 18. Fortunato continues to lead the assists with 11. And there's now at least a 3-way tie for clean sheets, with Osvaldo Fernando, Pascal Traore and Andre Panot all on 9. But now, the next step is to get ahead to the beginning of April, where we'll take a look at who wins the League Cup, because that happens, so we'll take a look, we might as well. We've got the European Club Knockout stages to see how they're going. They'll be at the quarter-final stage by that point, and then we'll get another look at the Premier League table as we approach the run-in, and we'll also get back into the team and player stats and take a bit more of a deep look. We rejoin the save on the 1st of April, and we're going to start with the European club competitions. Beginning with the Europa League, we had Newcastle and Manchester United heading straight into the last 16 stage, but there is only one of them left by the quarterfinals. Manchester United end up drawing Feyenoord. They win that one quite comfortably in the end, really, 4-0. They will go on to take more Dutch opposition on in Ajax in the quarterfinals. However, Newcastle go out at the last 16 stage. Because I mentioned that Juventus were dropping down to the Europa League, and Newcastle, rather unfortunately, were drawn against them early on in the knockouts. So they go out 6-5 on aggregate, a heck of a tie there. Juventus go on to play Galatasaray, who actually managed to knock out Wolfsburg, which is honestly quite an impressive result. But we'll keep an eye and we'll round up this when we get to the end of season summary and see if Manchester United can make a run and win the Europa League. We then get to the Champions League round of 16, and it's happened for a second year in a row. All 5 Premier League sides advance to the quarterfinals, except this time they've managed to avoid each other a little bit better. There is only one all-English tie in the quarterfinals. We start with Spurs there at the top. They had the closest game out of anyone. They went to penalties after a 3-3 draw with Barcelona, and in the end, Spurs get very lucky and win that shootout. They will take on, though, a very strong Borussia Dortmund side who take out Atletico Madrid 6-1. We then go down a little bit and we find Chelsea just destroying Porto 6-0. They will face Arsenal in the quarterfinals, who managed to overcome Nîmes 3-2. We see Liverpool set to take on PSG in the quarterfinals after Liverpool's 6-3 aggregate win over Gladbach. And Manchester City do a 6-1 over Bayern Munich, which is unbelievably impressive. They will take on Inter Milan in the quarterfinals after Inter did a 6-1 over Celta Vigo. Still make Man City favourites in that one. This could genuinely be all English semi-finals, which I don't know if that's good or bad. Another domestic piece of silverware has been decided, and it is a 3rd trophy of the season already for Manchester City. Another really high-scoring final as they beat Chelsea 3-2. Erling Haaland and Benjamin Sesko with early goals for Manchester City. Kylian Mbappe then responding. And then Ben Bamba doing it again, scoring what turns out to be the winning goal, because Aindino made it 3-2 in the 45th minute. That's all in the first half. Man City then turn it defensive for the second half. Chelsea actually out-XG Man City by almost an entire goal, but Manchester City hang on take their third piece of silverware of the season already in the League Cup. And then we turn it back around to the Premier League, and we've had a few more managerial changes in the past couple of months. It was Leeds making the first move, sacking Daniele De Rossi, kind of unsurprisingly seeing how they dropped off out of the European positions and all the way down to about 10th, I think it was. And they end up hiring, oh, he's back again. It had been a few years, 7 to be exact. Roberto De Zerbi's back. Spells with Spezia, Sassuolo and Porto. And now here he is at Leeds. Actually, he might have won the Europa Conference League with Sassuolo. That might match up. But he had very weird stints with Leicester, Bournemouth, Palace and Burnley. All inside 3 years, those 4 clubs. And then disappeared from England for a while. But he's back, now in charge of Leeds. So that's going to be an interesting situation. We then see Aston Villa sacking Axel Witsel after only roughly a year in charge. He had that great start to the season. I said that we were thinking alike, we were making the right transfers, and then it all went horrendously wrong. They were down in 15th at the February stop-off. It may have gotten even worse. They might genuinely be relegation candidates again. But they have actually turned to Leicester to bring in Josip Ilicic as their new manager. So he's bounced from Fulham to Bournemouth to Leicester to Villa, and that's in a 10-year span. So Ilicic is very used to the English game at this point, a Route 1 passing style of play, and that's what Villa are hoping will keep them in the top flight. Does mean Leicester now need a new manager again. So Ian Corley is back in caretaker charge. Let's take a look how the Premier League table looks with 7 or 8 games to go. And it's actually closer at the top. Man City now only 3 points clear. And considering it could have been 9, Chelsea have made quite a decent recovery. I actually see Liverpool making a reasonable recovery as well, as they're back up to 3rd. And Spurs are in great form, because they have leapt into the top 4 ahead of Newcastle, who are now 2 points behind. They've got Man United on their tail and Arsenal just a couple points further back. You then got Sheffield United sort of in their own little bubble with Leeds and Leicester, West Ham. Quite a few teams actually then all kind of combined together. If we look at the bottom half, Reading have played a game more than everyone around them, and they're still 8 points adrift. It's looking like the end of quite a decently long Premier League road for Reading, actually. They'd been in the top flight for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This was their 7th straight season in the Premier League. Obviously, Eddie Howe came in from Wolves and has seemingly made a bit of a bad choice. And considering Reading got a top half finish last year, this is a hell of a flop. You've got Brentford and Burnley then just 2 points off Wolves. And Blackburn, 30 points from 30 games. They keep that pace up. That is more than enough. Villa look like they're pretty safe. They've got a 9-point gap with 8 games to go. And then the likes of Norwich, Southampton, they'll all be fine. They're actually pushing more towards Leeds and Leicester there, towards the top half of the league. So I think we might be down to kind of, I don't know, it might just be Wolves, Burnley and Brentford, to be honest. Blackburn might be safe, unless they completely bomb the last 8 games of the season. What we'll do here in April, we'll get another summary of the team and player stats. Starting with the team side of things, Chelsea was 76 goals on the season in their 31 games. Manchester City at 71. Leading the pack, who have played 30 games, Newcastle with 56. So unless they score like 20 goals in their game in hand, then Man City and Chelsea pretty safe. If we look at the bottom half, Wolves with just 25 goals scored. So far, it's enough to keep them up. It might not stay that way, though. Brentford with just 26, Reading 28, Leicester only 31 goals scored, and yet they are 10th. Their defence is going overtime. If we look at the defence, it is 9th with 42 conceded, which compared to some of the other teams, I mean, Leeds have conceded 47, and they're in ninth. So Sheffield United have conceded 54, which is the fourth worst in the league, and they're eighth. So who needs a defence, right? Man City with 29 is the least conceded. Chelsea and Spurs there at 30. Reading have conceded by far the most at 64, and then Brentford 57. Norwich have actually conceded 55, and they're up in 14th and looking pretty darn safe, to be honest. We get to player detail, not player overview. We look at the top scorers chart. It is still led by Benjamin Sesko. It's been cut from 4 to 3, though. Sesko's got 25, and Mbappe is there on 22. Is there a new contract for Mbappe? No, there isn't. And he is still wanted by clubs outside of England. One of them is Monaco. That would be kind of beautiful. If he returned to Monaco to see out his career, that would be really nice. I mean, Inter Milan and Barcelona are the other teams. He hasn't played in Italy or Spain in his career. But just to return to Monaco, surely. That's got to be the one right there. But David Pena, the only other man on 20 goals in the season. Erling Haaland has 15. Is he re-signed for Man City? Yes, he is. Okay, so Haaland will have a age 36 season, like Mbappe is having right now, although Mbappe has since turned 37. So, a little interesting bit there. Sheffield United's goal scorers, Daniel Jebbison, still knocking them in at the age of 32. And Luis Antunes starting to pop up with some goals. He's got 13. How many Premier League goals does Jebbison have? Jebbison has 184 Premier League goals. This man is up in the Thierry Henry, Frank Lampard, Sergio Aguero standard. Daniel Jebbison, everyone. That's quite something. They've actually got 10 goals from Kachatlian. He's got 10 as well, so a few guys popping up for Sheffield United here. They signed him for £17.5 million in the summer from RB Leipzig. So, smart little move there. He didn't even play for Leipzig last year, which is kind of insane. If we look to assists, Fortunato has led the whole season. Kylian Mbappe is there in second with 9. He is carrying Chelsea, isn't he? It's going to be very interesting when he leaves, which it looks like is going to happen at the end of this season. Camavinga does have 8 assists, so he's there, and Richard Diallo with 7. So actually Chelsea are providing a lot. There's not necessarily a lot of people putting them away, because it's mostly Mbappe. So that is going to be very interesting to see how they cope without him next season, if that is to happen. Key passes, it's Leo Mana leading the way, the Southampton player. We've got Moritz Kjærgaard, Pedro Pretel, who is 30. Again, Nugen's turning 30. And Cristiano Leonardo, not Ronaldo. He may play for Manchester United, but this guy is Brazilian. It's not quite the same. Though they are also Portuguese speakers, so it's kind of the same. But he is, I mean, physically just rapid and very good balance. Technically very, very good on the ball as well. Regular starter for United. And came in from Atletico Mineiro on a free. What a bargain. He's having a much better season this year. Had a really good year on loan with Rangers a few years back. But this is his first kind of standout Premier League season. We look to chances created. That is actually led by Kylian Mbappe on 15. And we've got Elias Solberg. We've got a few guys. Craig Cooper is up here for Villa on 14 chances created, with just the 3 assists. Indino and Cristiano Leonardo are up here as well. Most fouled player, David Pena at 99 times. People are just fed up with him, aren't they? I mean, he has got 20 goals on the season, so if you can't stop him, kick him. Daniel Casero still leads the way on tackles 1. Him and Leo Mana are way ahead of Billy Blackwell, which is just a really, really good name. A Welsh centre-back, 26 years of age, playing his first season for Wolves, actually. £13.25 million move from Hearts, where he played reasonably well, and he's actually carried that form into the Premier League, so very impressively done by Mr. Blackwell. Callum Roberts is there as well, another Welsh defender. He's there for Norwich. We look at key tackles. We see Nelio leading the way for Newcastle. Their big money signing from Tottenham in the summer. He's having a pretty darn good year. Leo Manor also up there again. And Adam Dunn, Wolves' big signing, the Irish defender, is there on 10 key tackles as well. And if we finish it off with the goalkeepers, look at clean sheets to start with. It is Pascal Traore topping the way with 10. He's the only man to add another one. And it's now Osvaldo Fernando, Anatoly Trubin out of nowhere, and Taylor Kendrew out of nowhere, also up to 9. Andre Pana still there on 9 as well. Everyone else kind of a bit further back. Julian Baptiste got replaced, which for how good a start he had, slightly surprising, or he got injured. Let's check his injury history. He did fracture a finger. That was only a 3-week injury. He is listed as the first choice, but he's only played 12 times, which is slightly baffling. So who was the previous keeper? It's because Alfie McNally, who was signed for £1 million from Dunfermline, has played 18 times, despite being listed as the backup. I don't understand what's gone on at Leicester there. That does not make a whole lot of sense. We'll round it out with XG prevented, which is physically topped by Julian Baptiste. I cannot explain that one in any singular way. Is the other keeper even on the list? He is with a -2. I don't have any explanation to that. Costasea has been in goal for a second time. He's a midfielder. We've got Burnley's Mikhail doing all right, though he is wanted by Newcastle. Why would Newcastle want another keeper? Bring in a literal starter from another team to be your backup. Interesting tactic. Unless Fernando's wanted, which he isn't, and he still has 3 years left from his current deal. Don't quite understand that tactic. Olofsson's had a surprisingly good season for Southampton. He has conceded 46 and 31, but it could have been a lot more than that. Could have been more like 53. So a pretty good year overall. Pascal Traore leads clean sheets. He's around the 2 XG prevented mark. And Diogo Costa has seriously helped Chelsea out. He's at a 3 XG prevented right now. And Chelsea back up into second place. So he has done a seriously good job in goal. And I believe he has another year, so if they can get one more good year out of him before they decide to bring in their real first-choice keeper for the next few years, which Man City did this year, I think they can get a pretty good year out of him for one more at least. But the next plan is to pick the save up on the final day of the Premier League season. Now, that will just be a very quick stop-off, because all we're going to do is check any final managerial changes and then figure out what can happen on the final day. So let's see if the title battle goes down to it. Currently, if it stayed the same, it would, but it'd still be in Man City's favour. Looks like we've got a bit of a European battle going on, and then a small relegation fight going on where we might only have one survivor out of like 3. We're at the 18th of May. It is the final day of the Premier League season, but we are just going to do a quick roundup on a couple of managerial one change and 2 appointments. Leicester do the old let's get an old manager back. Arne Slot is back for a 3rd stint with Leicester. A pretty unsuccessful one from 2023 to 2025. The 2030 to 32 one was a little bit better, but it went a bit wrong at the end. And now he's back in 2036. Why? 13 years on since he was first appointed as Leicester boss, he gets appointed for a 3rd stint at the King Power. That is an interesting move, but okay. But only 3 days after the April stop-off point, Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank jumped ship from Norwich because he's taken the Wolfsburg job. I don't blame him for doing that. We've seen Wolfsburg competing on European fronts pretty much every single season for the past few years. So he wants to get in on that act. It has left Norwich without a manager briefly, but a couple of weeks ago, they appointed a man that I mentioned at the beginning of the video, when we were looking at the European group stages, Hellas Verona manager Gennaro Gattuso, he got Hellas Verona into the Champions League last season. Can he do something similar with Norwich? I mean, Norwich is certainly not a bad team in this at this point. They are a regular mid-table side. So, given half a chance, can Gattuso turn Norwich into a European contender? But now that that's summarised, let's take a look at the Premier League table and let's see what's to play for. Unfortunately, the title is not to play for. That is wrapped up. Manchester City, yet another Premier League title. I think that's 10. Is that 10 in the save? We've got 1 here, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I've lost count. Hang on. This was the quick sim season, so I don't know whether to count it. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, this is number 10, including the quick sim season. 9 if you only want to go off the 14 seasons that we've done more of a deep dive simulation into. It's Chelsea for second. It's Liverpool for third. That is all confirmed. However, there is a battle for fourth place. So this is the first time that we start working things out. Newcastle are currently fourth. Final day, they head to Sheffield United, who have finished 8th. They can't finish any higher. They can't finish any lower. That is confirmed and done. Tottenham are 1 point behind Newcastle. They are away at Reading, who are already relegated and have finished bottom. By the way, Reading and Wolves both down. So Wolves straight back down. There is an interesting relegation battle, though, which we will get to in a moment. So it's between Newcastle and Spurs for fourth. There is a bit of a battle between Spurs and Manchester United for fifth. But I think Man United can pretty much just say they have finished sixth. They'll get Europa League football for this season. But they were still in the Europa League. So maybe Champions League football could be on the horizon, but we'll find that out when we get to the full end of season summary. Manchester United, just for those wondering, host Leicester on the final day. Leicester down in 13th, could finish as low as 12th, could finish as high as about 9th, because the middle of the table from Norwich in 15th up to Brighton in 9th is only 7 points. So that's pretty darn ridiculous. Arsenal have confirmed 7th, so they'll have Europa Conference League football next season, and then Sheffield United just in their own little world in 8th. It's the relegation battle that has a bit of interest, though. As mentioned, Wolves and Reading are gone. Reading, after a 7-year stint in the Premier League, just have a shocker of a season, and down they go. Wolves was their first season back, had a managerial change partway through, went from Eddie Howe, who got stolen from them, to Dejan Stankovic, and in the end, he cannot keep Wolves up. They are gone. But there is a 3-way relegation battle involving Blackburn, Brentford, and Burnley. One of the 3 will go down. Blackburn have to get a result. They are away at Norwich, which is not the worst fixture. That is definitely possible to get a result. A draw could be enough for Blackburn because they have a far better goal difference than Brentford. Brentford go away to Leeds. Now, Leeds are 12th, and again, they're in that strange pack where they could finish as low as 14th and as high as 9th. So that's just to do with positioning rather than anything really on the line. But Brentford, they need a result there just to confirm their safety, else they're relying on Norwich. The other team that could go down, as mentioned, is Burnley. They host already relegated Wolves on the final day. They also have by far the best goal difference. Burnley just keep staying up by the narrowest of margins since they returned 2 seasons ago they returned to the Premier League. Yeah, so this is their second season back. Skin of the teeth stuff last season on goal difference. It could come down to something like that again. But in short, the top 4 is still to play for between Newcastle and Spurs. And then a 3-way relegation battle where 2 of the sides will stay up. So it's not the worst situation, but Blackburn have to get a result at Norwich, else it just kind of ends there anyway. If we look very quickly, top goal scorer looks like it's going to Benjamin Sesko. He's got 28 ahead of Kylian Mbappe's 24. Fortunato 2 ahead on assists, ahead of Shola Shortire, who had a real takeoff towards the back end of the season. Webber there with 10. Normally he's scoring for Liverpool, but providing a few assists this year. And Pascal Traore is your Gold Glove winner. He has 14, which is 2 ahead of Osvaldo Fernando and Anatoly Trubin. So all that is left to do is to simulate ahead now to the end of the season, where we'll wrap up all the European club competitions. We'll get the FA Cup done as well, and then a final deep dive into the Premier League table and some statistics along with it. We've gone forward to the 1st of June, one day after the Champions League final, and we're going to start with the European club competitions, starting with the Europa Conference League, as I've started doing with no English representation in the past 3 seasons. We're just taking a look at who actually wins it, and in this case, it is Hertha Berlin of Germany, as they beat Braga 3-1 in the final. Big shout out to Aberdeen, though, who make the semi-finals before going out 2-1 to Hertha Berlin. Great effort from them. But it is a German club in Hertha Berlin who take the Europa Conference League crown. Europa League, and for the first time in quite a while, it is not an English team that wins it. Atalanta of Italy with a 2-1 win in the final over Manchester United, meaning that United will fall short of Champions League football for next season. They will have another go at the Europa League, and Atalanta will be the side to move into Champions League. And to be fair, the sides they've beaten along the way, they deserve it. A penalty shootout win after a 1-1 draw with Real Sociedad, and then a 5-4 aggregate win over Italian rivals Juventus. Manchester United had a crazy 5-4 over Ajax in the quarterfinals, followed by a 4-2 over Sevilla in the semi-finals, but they do fall short in the final. The last time an English side didn't win the Europa League, 2029-30, when RB Leipzig did it. So well done Atalanta on that front. We'll see how the final went down. It was goals from, we're learning people here, Eneko Olezola, former Norwich. So he is very used to the top flight of England. Villa brought him in all the way back in 2025. So many loan stints, so many different clubs played for. This man's played for Rotherham, and he's scoring European final goals. All right, interesting. It was then an equaliser from Jose Antonio Ruiz, who is just a squad player for United. I was going to say, not a player I'm familiar with. Came in last season, actually, from Real Madrid. He got the goal that got United level. However, Atalanta's winner coming in the second half from Armand Dele Patel, the French striker that they got from Granada. Another Lyon Academy graduate. They have had so many top players. And Atalanta, your Europa League 2035-36 winners. And finally to the Champions League, and it did indeed happen. The semi-finals were 4 English sides. And we got the final that we keep getting at the moment. Chelsea versus Manchester City. The roots there, Chelsea beat Arsenal 4-3 in the quarterfinals, and then Spurs 5-2 in the semi-finals. Very London heavy there. Manchester City got past Inter Milan 4-2 in the quarters, and then Liverpool 1-0 in the semi-final. But in the end, it is Chelsea who reclaim the Champions League crown, their first title since 2030-31. They stop Manchester City from going back to back. We'll take a look at how the final went. Tiernan's back again. Roy, who's now 19 at this point, scored another really, really important goal. He scored a Premier League winning goal a couple seasons ago. Now he scores in the Champions League final. This kid is clutch. However, Chelsea go and turn it around in the second half with goals from Benny Granulati, the Mexican forward, and then the winner in the 77th minute from Richard Diallo sees Chelsea win the Champions League and prevent Manchester City from winning 5 trophies on the season. We've still got to look at the FA Cup, so Man City might have got 5. Well, it is a Manchester club who does win the FA Cup, but it is Manchester United. Quite an interesting final, actually, with Manchester United taking on Aston Villa, who, well, this was their route into European football. It doesn't quite pan out. Man United opened the scoring through Denilson Perez, obviously a really high talent player there. There was a response, though, by Villa through Jaracen, who got it back to 1-1 until the 83rd minute. A late winner from Massimo Orsini, just a fringe player at Manchester United, as he scores the FA Cup winning goal. He's transfer listed. He's wanted through Europe. He's 29 years of age. He'll turn 30 at the start of next season. But he goes down in the history books with an FA Cup winning goal in 2036. And United, Manchester United that is, do get a trophy on the season. And so to the roundup of the Premier League. And the first point of call was top 4. Newcastle have bottled it. They will play Europa League football next season after a 2-1 loss at Sheffield United. And Spurs go to Reading and get a 2-0 win over the side who had already finished bottom prior to that anyway. Spurs sneak their way. Spurs are just making this a thing. They sneak into the right position on the final day and pick up whatever the reward is. They've started to make a habit of that. But Spurs will have Champions League football once again next season. Newcastle and Manchester United, for a second straight season, will be the 2 representatives in the Europa League. And for the first time in 4 seasons, England will have a representative in the Europa Conference League. Arsenal will be that club as they finish 7th and will actually take the role there. When we look to the bottom of the table, which was the other deciding spot, Burnley get a convincing 3-0 win over already relegated Wolves as they stay up. Brentford a 1-1 draw at Leeds, which they must have thought was enough to keep them up. But it wasn't, because Blackburn get a clutch 1-0 win at Norwich and survive in the top flight. It was a goal from Geraldo, the 21-year-old Brazilian winger that they signed for just under £13 million in the summer, coming over from Flamengo. Such a young player as well. Given the important role, the star man of the team, hasn't had the most incredible season, but my goodness me, does he become the hero on the final day here. Blackburn stay up by the skin of their teeth, and Brentford will go straight back down into the Championship. So again, 2 newly promoted sides go down and 1 stays up. I think that's the 3rd straight season that that's happened. If we look at the rest of the table, Sheffield United marooned there in 8th. West Ham end up finishing 9th. So I believe they've had a 9th and an 11th in the past 2 seasons, or it might be a 9th and a 9th. Oh no, they were way down. They did have a couple good seasons. Oh, that's it. Yeah, they had 2 11ths there. Then a bit of a drop-off season last year, but back to 11th. So they'll have a 5th straight Premier League season, managed by, oh yeah, Billy Dodds. I think I called out that hiring. I was like, what are you doing? It's actually worked out pretty well, to be fair to them. So So an apology to Billy Dodds. But there is your final table. We'll take another look at it just when we finish up the video. But to bring things to a close, let's look at the stats of the season. Chelsea actually topped the goal scoring pretty much all the way through. They had 92 goals on the campaign. Manchester City with 87. They've regularly been the top two scorers. Wolves with the lowest number of goals by quite a way at just 30. And then Brentford and Reading 35 each, as all three of those clubs go down. If we take a look at conceded, Manchester City 35 conceded to Spurs' 36 and Chelsea's 39. Most goals conceded on the season was Reading at 76, and then Wolves and Brentford tied at 70. Once again, as they both go down. So if you're in the bottom three for conceded and goals scored, you're probably going down. It's a fair assessment. If we have a look at the player statistics on the season, it is indeed a golden boot for Benjamin Sesko, who has just recently turned 33. Kylian Mbappe in second with 24 goals on the season, and his contract is winding down. He's got less than a month left. He's happy to see out the remainder of his career with the club, but Chelsea have not offered him a new deal. He's currently injured, actually, with a twisted knee. Still the same clubs want him. We've got a little storyline going into the next season. Where will Kylian Mbappe be? I need to remember that, because if it's a transfer, it's going to be a free transfer, so it's not going to show in the summer window transfers. So I'll have to remember to look for Kylian Mbappe and see if he's still a Chelsea player. We've got Benny Granulati, though, having a really good season for Chelsea, actually, as he bagged 22 goals in just 13 starts and 15 substitute appearances. So if Mbappe does go, they're in good hands with Granulati, who's only 25, will turn 26 at the start of next season. So that's certainly not bad. Haaland drops to just 17 goals this season, so a little bit worse, but still a pretty darn good player. He did get a one-year extension to his deal. If we take a look at most assists on the season, it was Fortunato throughout the whole thing. He ends up with 15, Shola Shortire with 13, and then a few guys in Prigmar, Weber and Mbappe there on 10. Well, 24 goals and 10 assists for Mbappe in 37 appearances. So slightly less than one goal contribution a game at the age of 37. Not a bad attempt, really, there, is it? We look at key passes. We find Moritz Kjærgaard of West Ham leading the way there. Richard in second and Hugo Felix third for Norwich. And chances created, Rafael Luis actually topping the way alongside his teammate Jesus and Sheffield United's Shola Shortire and Brighton's Guillaume Santos. Mbappe was up there as well in that one because he's just completely insane even when he's near retirement. And other than that, we can get into defensive stats, actually. Quickly before that, most fouled became Denilson Pires at 133. Two guys with the most offsides, Ben Jackson and Sheikh Konate. So, not so good on them. If we look for tackles won defensively, Daniel Cusero tops the way for Norwich ahead of Leo Mana. And Rahula Gazemzadeh, I think that's about as close as I'm going to get. He's still going for Aston Villa. He has been a very long-term Villa player. Since 2029, over 200 Premier League appearances. Gives me El Mohammadi vibes. Very much so. If we go to key tackles, Adam Dunn tops the way for Wolves. Unfortunately, they will head back to the Championship. Alejandro Rodriguez and Nelio there in second, just behind. Key headers was a Brighton player leading that one. Clearances, Wolves' Raymond Asser, but again they head down. As well as shots blocked being led by Dalton Koyman of Brentford as they head down to the Championship. And rounding it out with the goalkeepers, as we mentioned, Golden Glove for Pascal Traore. Trubin does keep a clean sheet on the final day, as I think Taylor Kendrew does as well, and they lead up to 13 ahead of Osvaldo Fernando on 12. And Andre Panna, just the 10 in his 37 appearances, but a Premier League title on top of that. So I think he'll be pretty pleased all round. And finally, with the XG prevented, it was actually Trubin who topped that statistic, which is kind of surprising because he didn't have a very good start to the season with Spurs. The first 9 games were a bit ropey. The next 29 were a lot better. Elias Raffen Olofsson there for Southampton as they stay up for another season in the Premier League. He may well be on his way out, but he did very well. Andre Panna, a good first season as Manchester City's number 1 after a massive transfer fee. But again, a guy who can just stay in goal for the next decade or so for Manchester City. If you look around the other top guys, Leandro for Leeds, Osvaldo Fernandez there for Newcastle, as you'd expect. Daniel Peretz, who has been a long-term keeper with Aston Villa and West Ham, has been around in the Prem for about 6 years now. He is wanted by Juve, but he's also listed as not for sale by West Ham. So that will be an interesting stare down there between those teams. Mikel doing all right with Burnley, prevented more than he let in. May well have kept Burnley up with those, to be fair. And then Traore and Diogo Costa, who came in halfway through the season, did a reasonably good job for Chelsea. Julian Baptiste there as well, who should have played far more than he actually did. Although, actually wasn't all that brilliant. There was just that string of clean sheets at the start of the season. And then Leicester dropped off and he kind of dropped off with it. But that is going to bring to a close the 2035-36 season, season 14 of the simulation. Manchester City are back as your champions for a 10th time in a 15-year season simulation. That is just crazy. Chelsea, Liverpool and Spurs take the Champions League spots, whilst we say goodbye to Brentford, Wolves and Reading, and potentially Kylian Mbappe of Chelsea, which is going to make for very interesting changes to next season, as well as it potentially being Haaland's final season with Manchester City. So things are starting to change, but will Man City and Chelsea stay as the 2 runaway best clubs in the world? It's not just the Premier League that they're dominating. They're dominating Europe as well and winning Club World Cups when they come along. So how much longer does that domination last? Leeds, by the way, 11th, despite, spending a lot of money. I'd like to see them do better, but we'll see. But thank you for watching the video. I know this one, I think has been quite a long one. It feels it anyway. Well, I hope you have enjoyed it, and we'll catch you in the next video.